I'm like totally out of the loop.
Hurry up.
I'm trying. I'm working.
5. We're not officially late yet.
Okay. Okay. Oh, you know why? Because the computer, for some reason, is like easily 2 minutes slower than.
So now you have 5:01. I have 5:01.
Okay. All right.
We should schedule these things for
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not
5:02.
early or late.
Yeah.
For 5:02. Yeah. We could.
No, I don't think
That's
we
a
can.
thing. I thought you could.
No, it's in round 15.
Oh no, it's in quarters. Yeah.
Hey everybody, this is Matt, and we're at Texas Toast Guitars. Thanks for joining us for our 60 minutes, our power hour, right in between Ike and the gang over at Flipside Music and Dylan McCurchie from Dylan Talks Tone. On my list I have 2 things on my list. Chris, are you familiar with my board over there and what it says? I have non-negotiables, and then I have SOU.
I'm not sure what SOU is for.
A sense of urgency.
Okay.
But non-negotiables is contact Dylan for a pickup order, because we've got a bunch of pickups
a couple that we need right away. That, or I need to get a
that's yummy.
It's not terrible. Need to get
we don't do that.
Practice a lot.
Yeah,
my handwriting sucks.
It would be easier to just get a pickup order going. I'm sure Dylan would make it. Yeah,
I would never actually fake a Dylan pickup.
No. But we've got Rocky's bass that we're waiting on strings. I've got the Rocky Mountain Archtop Festival guitar that is actually dovetails into sand and set neck challengers on shelf in workshop. I've got 2 more of those to do tomorrow. And then, and do you know, Chris, why I have 2 more of those to go tomorrow?
No.
Because I sanded all day long today, just like you did.
I did the same, yeah.
It's been a long time since we've stood at the same bench sanding.
You want me to read one of those over there? It says Cardin Fred War Snob.
Yeah, that doesn't say that, no. So I've got a couple more necks to glue in tomorrow. They're all sanded to 150. The bodies and the necks are sanded to 150. I've got to get them sanded to 220 and glued up. That should be a handy little half-hour project. And then I'm going to start
for glasses for Chris.
No, it doesn't. It says Dastard. Well, it might. And then, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start on Jam Jimmy's Icon, which is basically just needs sanding and neck set in. Dastardly Dave sent us a super chat and said, Brian made me do it. Ad free is for me. You know, guys, I love doing ad free.
Suck it, Dave. Sorry.
I love having no ads. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think that we are and by the way, no ads pays off way more than YouTube ads do, thanks to viewers like you.
Thanks to funding.
That's right. But I wonder, do you think that there is something like some YouTube algorithm, some corporate overlord that's going to go, we're not going to push these videos because we're not getting any ad revenue? Or, and this is part of the YouTube contract, do you think that they will say, well, we'll just put ads on this because they can do that? And then if you don't monetize it, they'll just take all the money. Wait, again, it's not like we make so much money from ad revenue.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think? Let me know. I'm going to keep it ad free.
We may have to make the like the Sunday ones monetized just to just keep the overlords happy.
Maybe. Yeah.
You could always go back and monetize them later. Right?
Yeah, maybe. But I wonder, like, if, you know, how like things work on the grand scheme of like however many views it has to get, and then it starts to tell other people about. I don't know. So, but anyway, as long as you guys help us out with super chats and with Patreon and with buying guitars, the only ads you're going to hear from Texas Toast are ads for Texas Toast. And 5280 Lutherie workshops.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. So, Chris, like I said, I know that you guys, I know that you have been sanding all day too. Talk to the people about that while I read some comments from Zed and Lefty and Mike and Dastardly Dave and Seal Beach Mike.
Well, so we have 8 guitars in the paint queue that had sealer on them, and the sealer needed to get sanded back before I can paint them.
Mm-hmm.
So I sanded all of those today, and 8's a lot.
It is a bunch.
Yeah. And then now they're ready for paint, so I'll start paint tomorrow and Monday, and as long as that takes.
We
in addition to other things.
It's like the guitars just kept coming. I'm like, I would keep going, and then like you'd come in with another one, and it was
Well, and I thought I was done, and then I went, wait, weren't there 2 of those? And I looked over, and sure, there was another one. So I grabbed it, and I was like, okay, I'm sort of in the zone.
3J Music sent us a super chat and says, no one made me do it. I just dig to add free shows. I like them too. Jay sent us a super chat and said, suck it, YouTube overlords, ad free. Joey Dano says, Dave made me do it. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Dave's new thing this time when he came in was the phrase suck it. He kept telling me to suck it. Suck it.
You had to tell me about it. It wasn't a thing.
So
Mike, thank you for your super chat. I was working on, so guys who have guitars here who have super chatted and people who have not yet, I was working on their guitar too. But you sanded Mike's Billy Bow. And I sanded and got Doug Santaniello's Toast Right glued up. It's cool too.
There'll be some pore filler and sealer next week as well. So yeah, there's a bunch that are going to go into that. There's a bunch of level 1s that get pore filler but no sealer.
There's one that gets.
I shouldn't give away the secrets.
Yeah. Hey, what?
But yeah, next week's just gonna be all paint.
You're just gonna like be sealing all week next week. What's your plan?
Sealer and paint, and yeah.
I fear that I won't have a whole lot to do, and so I'll get pushed into the sanding, sealer sanding, which is fine. That's just the way it goes.
Sanding sealer, yeah, that's pretty easy. I apologize.
So we had lunch with Federico today at the Grateful Gnome. For those of you who've been out here and have been to the Grateful Gnome, you know it's a good sandwich spot. What do you think of the chopped cheese?
That was good. Like I told you, that first bite, if I'd known how hot it was going to be, I would have waited 30 seconds or a minute, 45 seconds maybe.
No,
because that was the best bite, but it's slightly too temperature hot, and I almost burned my mouth.
Yeah,
I waited too long. I don't want to say it was cold, but it wasn't quite the same heat.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem as cheesy after that, but it was good. I liked it.
I worked on Rob's guitar today. His is one of the 2 that I have to get the neck and body sanded to 220 and glued up tomorrow. So Rob, your guitar is coming along. Joy says something about always Coors and Odyssey Beer Works. Although I'm not drinking a lot. I did have beer over at Jim's last night, but I'm having this Polar Seltzer, which is good. Where did you get that? Just at the grocery store?
King Supers.
Greg the Walrus says, by the way, Matt, that piece of striped ebony on my Challenger is increíble. Worked on that one today. That was a good. Remember, that's the one with that crazy. I guess it's Gaboon ebony or something. Bob Potter sent us a super chat and says, almost Friday. That's cool. We're gonna have some stuff to reveal.
My first full week in several weeks.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, you were feeling a little
starting to feel like a human again.
That's good, man. I'm glad you're feeling good.
Like
better. I don't know that you're feeling good.
I think by tomorrow, I'll be almost 100%, and then Saturday, hopefully.
I hope that you do.
Hopefully, 100%. I've been sick for way longer than I should.
Bud D sent us a super chat, and just to send one, it looks like. So thank you so much. Hey. One of my inspirational guys that I watch on YouTube, Chad Wright, the Navy SEAL who said you have to eat ice cream if you want to reach your maximum potential. He's at a bike race in Colorado this week, I think.
You sure it wasn't last week?
It might be last week.
Yeah, big Leadville 100 bike race.
Okay, that's a 100-mile one?
Yeah.
Is that like one of the hardest bike races in the world?
I mean, I've done it, so it can't be that hard.
Okay.
But
did you have ice cream?
Pretty hard.
It was probably last week.
No. I didn't. They have a bunch of Leadville events, and I think this weekend's the running race.
Well, no, he might be doing that too, but someone said
he could have done both. I mean, there's people that do all of them.
If one guy was going to do both, I would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
So that's been going on for 30 years.
Cool.
This week they gave 2 guys special awards for doing all 30 of the 100-mile bike races.
Wow,
that's what I.
Do you know who they were?
No, I don't.
Could we look it up?
Yeah, I didn't recognize either name.
Oh, okay.
So it was 2 old guys.
Oh, okay.
Imagine that. 30 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a hard event, and it's all way up in altitude. I think the low point's like 9,600 feet. And then it goes up and down up and then down. It starts at 10.5, drops down, and then goes up and down several times. Maxes out at 12.7 or 13.1, something like that. It's stupid. So yeah,
far out. Yeah. Well, let's start talking about guitars, shall we?
Okay.
So, Chris, today I want to talk to you and I want to talk to y'all about who will carry on the legacy of the luthier. Although in the thing I put the guitar builder's legacy or something like that.
Guitar brand.
I rarely use the term luthier. But we've been talking about this a little bit lately, and there are some things that I have been following, not in the guitar industry, where a maker or a name that is synonymous with a company that has a fairly popular name, the guy passes away. And what happens to the company? So I wonder, you guys, what let's talk a little bit about what happens when a Leo Fender leaves the company or dies, or when a Ted McCarty leaves the company or dies, or I hesitate to say Les Paul because he didn't make and I realize that Leo Fender didn't make all the guitars, and I realize that Ted McCarty didn't make all the guitars, but someday, soon, in the grand scheme of the universe, we are all going to shrug off this mortal coil, and people will have to go, what do I do with these guitars? Why does Doug have all these guitars? You know what I mean? And I wonder who's gonna be there to go, oh, well, I remember when Doug got that and all this neat stuff that happened.
Yeah.
And Mike Beckloff's another one. Hi, Mike. Mike sent us a super chat and says, for ad-free fun. Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate that. So yeah, and the one that comes immediately to mind is there is a man named Paul Reed Smith. And there is a guitar company named Paul Reed Smith. It's named for the same guy who has the name.
That worked out well.
Okay. Now, I don't know to what level Mr. Smith operates the R&D or the whatever, and you guys probably know better than I do. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't really, it doesn't, what he does and doesn't do every day at that company has very little to do with what you and I buy when we buy something from Paul Reed Smith. We know Paul isn't making it. We're pretty sure. But for all I know, he does nothing or he does everything. I have no idea. And frankly, neither one would surprise me. Maybe he does all kinds of stuff around the factory. Maybe he doesn't do anything. I don't know.
Let me show you how to do that.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, like, for all I know, he's the guy drawing up all the new stuff, or he's the guy, doing all the marketing.
Head of maintenance.
I don't know. Yeah. He's probably not head of maintenance, but yeah. But you know what I mean, though? Like, what do you, okay, if he were doing things at the factory, I'm not looking at the comment section yet, because I'm sure that there's a bunch of people telling me what Paul does at the factory. What do you think he would do?
Say that sentence again.
I'm not looking at the comment section,
right, got that.
Because I'm sure there are people typing what Paul Reed Smith does at the factory because they know, because they've been to the tour or whatever. I don't know. But what do you think is likely that he does at that factory, if he does anything?
I think he probably just has like a general concerned interest in virtually everything.
You think he's still a figurehead of menace on the assembly line?
He probably checks in every once in a while. I think he probably has guys that do that for him though, and come back and go, "Oh yeah, it's going really good," or "We need to do this," and he you know.
So then you don't think he plays a fairly active role?
I don't think he has a hugely active role in it at this point. I don't think he could. Well, it's too big of a company. Even if he had a very, very active role, he has other people that he disperses to do all this stuff. And maybe everybody answers to Paul Reed Smith. Maybe Paul Reed Smith and everybody else answer.
There's a bunch of shareholders
and a CEO. I don't know. Is he the CEO at this point?
I have no idea. We're going to look at the comment section here in a second.
Yeah, he might not be. He might be, our founder and president. So president and CEO are two different things.
Yeah,
they can be.
So if that's the case, then this will be a short live stream. Well, because or will it?
Well,
when Paul Reed Smith actually dies, and I don't want Paul Reed Smith to die.
Right.
I'm just saying that the law of averages is that you and I are not going to live to be 300 years old.
Yeah.
So when and if Mr. Smith, doesn't do it anymore, let's say he just decides to retire. He's still alive. He's not doing it anymore. And the company then what happens? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there a historian there, or is it up? Is the legacy of the company? Is the legacy of Paul Reed Smith? Is the legacy of, the people with the horse on the roof next door to us? Is the legacy of Texas Toast Guitars up to us? Is that something that we have? Do we have to be the keepers of the history, or does somebody else do that? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe another example of this would be Rick Turner.
Okay.
And Turner Guitars. It's a little smaller company. The guy that started it did it the whole time. I think he was the guy, up until he passed.
I think so too.
Certainly, and so then what happens to a company like that? Some of these bigger companies, they end up with board of trustees and all this other stuff, and the guy that started it becomes less and less a thing and more a figurehead.
Okay.
More you prop him up and he spouts goodwill and marketing and stuff like that. But when they and I think some of it is guys sort of step away from it a little bit. Like, I'm sure for the first 15 or 20 years, I'll bet you Paul Reed Smith was on the floor every day, walking the floor, looking at stuff.
There's that video from '85 where he's answering the phone. He just so happens to be there, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know."
Well, yeah, maybe.
I'm sure that if you call now, you don't talk to Paul. Hey, is Paul there?
Yeah, can I talk to
Paul
Reed?
Yeah.
Is that who you asked for? Paul Reed?
PR? Hey, PR. What's
PR?
I don't know.
Paul R.
I'm not sure how it works.
I'm gonna go with P.
A lot of people. You guys don't seem to know either. There's a lot of he's running around the forest tapping on trees. He's sitting counting his money. Whatever.
Yeah. He's thinking about his next weird video that he's gonna make. I don't know, but there's other. Like I said, Rick Turner.
But can we agree though that a lot of
industry person? Those are.
Well, the other industry person that I'm thinking of was had a company that he was very much hands-on until he died.
That's what I mean.
And
so what happens to that?
Well, okay, so the reason that we're talking about this is because not long ago, love him or hate him, love the product that he made, hate the product that he made. The parallel is that not long ago, Gaston Glock died, and within the last year, and for the 40 plus years preceding that, he was the major driving force of the company. The reason that every Glock looks the same is because their R&D or their whoever was figuring out all this stuff for Glock was one guy and it was him. They all looked the same. That, hey, now with this thing on it that it's an even
darker,
it's silver. An even blockier thing than it was before. Okay,
with sharper corners.
Yeah. So, and I don't know to what extent Mr. Smith has with the company, but I do know that Gaston Glock played a humongous part in the day-to-day operation. Again, he wasn't answering the phone or sweeping the floor or whatever.
So how much of his knowledge did he pass on? How much of it did he hold back from literally every other person in the company?
Well, I think
are they able to continue without him? Funny
you should ask, because he was, I think, borderline lunatic anyway. Like, I think he divorced his wife of a zillion years and fired all his kids, and then married some lady who was I don't know, quite a bit younger than he, and then now she's the boss. I don't know.
Okay.
Dylan says Novo Guitars is like what Chris said. Dennis Fano wants to step back, and our friend Brian is running it. I think it depends on the size of the company. Dylan, I think you're right, man. Mike Beckloff says that Collings Guitars might be a good analog. He says that Bill Collings passed away, and the employees continue to move the company forward. Now that brings me to another thing, though, Mike. Thank you for letting for that, because earlier today we were talking about heritage guitars, and I said, what do you think those guys did in 1983? Did they what were they doing? And you said,
and I said, well, I think the first thing they said was, we all need jobs. Let's see if we can't keep this going.
And while that is accurate, I hope
that's not much of a sales pitch.
No,
buy a guitar. We need jobs.
Yeah. I don't think there was. I remember in the 80s getting the glossy brochures from Heritage and going, this Les Paul with a different headstock, or a 335 with a different headstock, and think. And I know for a fact that in that handout it didn't say, you should buy this guitar from us because we all are in Michigan and we need jobs.
Yeah, what am I going to do? Play golf?
Yeah.
That's not really.
That's what
that's a different.
Joe said.
End. But and really that's it. That is an actual cool story, because they could have they could have just all gone and gotten other jobs, and woodworker or whatever else. There's other jobs. There were other jobs in that town, but I think several of them decided that it was too important of a legacy to just let drift away. They probably had the opportunity to move with the company.
I think they could have, but they relocate to Nashville. Yeah.
So that part of it is actually a very cool story. And they continued on.
Let's shift gears for just a moment. Check Yourself Fool wants to know what our thoughts are on the Buzz Fenton system. And frankly, I don't know anything about it.
The fact that we don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, we don't know anything.
Know where we are on it. I don't know anything about it.
Maybe he wants to know if maybe the guy who came up with that died and the company is struggling to find an identity. I actually I don't know. But anyway, there's a handful of companies that have come and gone. There are a handful of companies that have survived the passing of a key member of the someone who maybe they left or they died, or they Leo Fender left Fender and then started a couple companies after that, and
then died,
and that which has nothing to do with the three companies that he started. But
no, but he died during G&L, and G&L
still a company. Did he?
Yeah, G&L's tiny.
Yeah.
Nobody realizes just how small G&L is.
How small is G&L?
It's so small.
How many guys work? Either 20 or
probably
120?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's tiny.
Okay.
In comparison, and they have Asian guitars, and so a lot of that gets builds up the company, but the actual G&L is very, very small.
Okay, so now we've whet everyone's appetite for maybe what we're kind of talking about.
Okay.
Now let's kick around the notion of, well, what do you do when, and it's not like, do not hear that anything is happening to Chris or myself.
Correct.
Do not hear that, because that's not what I'm saying.
No.
But who's like, what happens when a company like, how do you bounce back from that? How do you bounce back when Bon Scott dies and until you get Brian Johnson? How do you, what do you do then? Or what, how do you bounce back, and what does the company do? There's a handful of things they could do. One, of course, is like your example with Heritage. Well, they just kind of keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Heritage might have made a handful of like Stratty looking things in the 80s, but I can't really remember.
Yeah.
For the most part, and people who work at Heritage and people who love Heritage, please don't take this the wrong way. It's just really my ignorance. For the most part, they're making the same stuff they were making in 1983, it looks like, when they were working for Gibson. They're making Les Paul kind of things and 335 kind of things. They look a little different, but
yeah. And I don't. At one point, I knew the story of how they got, because it's not just like, oh well, we'll just go in and turn on the lights on Monday after Gibson leaves.
Yeah, I'm sure it's different. Yeah.
So there was some money there. There was something. There was bank loan or something. I think it was three guys, Jim Derlew and a couple other guys that sort of spearheaded the thing, got somebody to believe in them. I don't think there's a whole lot else going on in town, so that probably wasn't.
That probably doesn't hurt.
Thing. Yeah. And just sort of started making.
Do you think that
guitars again?
That in 2024, a factory in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or like square footage for factory industrial space in Kalamazoo, Michigan, is more or less than Denver, Colorado?
Significantly less.
I would bet
in
it
Colorado.
Is, yeah.
The funny thing is, I think, so that factory is literally on top of the train tracks, which back in the day was the way that you moved all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So much so that, the famous story is in 1958, their salesman left the factory by train and started traveling with Explorers, Futuras, and V's.
Maybe a Modern in
possibly there. Possibly a Modern.
Maybe. We don't know.
If you know where the train goes, you know where they go. So you can sort of follow along and sort of figure out, well, they might have ended up right on the border, and that Modern ended up in Mexico.
Okay, so
anyway.
So when
they moved, rail was a lot less of a thing. So all of a sudden, not being next to the train tracks, centrally located in the U.S. Yeah, who cares, really? Yeah. So
if, let's just say for the sake of conversation, that Paul Reed Smith leaves the company for whatever reason.
Okay.
And it's still a company, and it's owned by, he gets irritated.
It's like,
He leaves and the everything else is in place, and Paul Reed Smith as a company continues to be an entity, and they want to continue to thrive and retain their position in the marketplace, or even grow. What does that company do now? And do they have to continue making the I guess what they're calling them now is their core series? And how many of their core series are they even making right now? Or do they concentrate on like import stuff? Do they all of a sudden, is there now a pointy Paul Reed Smith after he's gone? Is there, or do they just start making Strats? Wait. So do you think Paul Reed Smith would ever make like a pointy guitar? Is a trick question.
Well, I think he has.
He has done at least one.
Yeah.
However,
whether they would continue doing that is a complete other thing, and he probably has favorite players, and maybe.
Well, there's that one picture of, I guess Billy Gibbons has an Explorer with a PRS headstock that he says Paul made for him.
Okay.
Now, but Billy Gibbons says a lot of stuff.
He does say a lot of things.
So I don't know.
He says how.
Yeah.
And then he says crazy stuff.
There was a guitar. It was that classic PRS shape that has a 6 on a side headstock that he made for the guy from Anthrax. For I don't know how many of them there are.
Okay.
I think there are more of those were built than the Eddie Van Halen PRSs. But I don't know if I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe it's the same number.
So I have a feeling that I mean, at some point, Paul will probably mostly step down from day-to-day operations.
Okay.
Whatever his role is. Maybe he's already mostly done that.
And we don't know. Let us know if you guys know. But if you're just guessing, you don't have to type that out unless you just think it's funny. But
I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
But the company will continue on, and if he's smart about it, he'll kind of lay out the groundwork for what the company
strategy
his exit strategy and what the company needs to be as it moves forward, and hopefully has surrounded him with people that think the same.
And again, we don't know what his position is. This is probably already in place, or it's already happened, or what, we don't know. But
but I think that's the way that you do it. You know, and what do they call that when you know, when somebody dies or somebody leaves and they hold all the secrets to the company, and it grinds to a halt because nobody knows what's going on. There's a phrase for that, and I don't know what it is.
I don't know either.
No, okay, well, you're the wordsmith.
The secret died with
but
Semi Mosley when he left.
Well, that's another one. That you know, he was the guy from start to finish every single time, and probably died with a lot of the secrets.
And there are some people who work there. Ed Elliott, our friend, and
and I'm sure he was, you know, Semi Mosley was willing to show anybody anything, but I'm also sure he probably didn't want to pay anybody any real money. So
he might not have been able to.
He was the guy always, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna make guitars. So what were we talking about? PRS. And I mean, I think PRS as a company will continue on, and you know, it'll be.
I can't imagine
if anything. You should be able to spin PRS's legacy into something more.
But what I wonder is, will they take a step into the future?
Yeah.
Or will they cling to the past?
I think they'll probably cling to the past.
Now, this dovetails nicely into the next thing I want to talk about. So many companies have done nothing but cling to the past. And Fender and Gibson, of course, are the whipping boys for this, because people go, they don't ever come up with anything good. And then when they come up with something good, people go, why don't they just make the thing that I like that they've been making for the last 7 years?
And honestly, both companies have made a lot of stuff that people just didn't like. So they stopped making it and continued making the other stuff. But they both attempt to innovate. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Do you think, some
of it sticks, some of it doesn't.
I have 2 questions for you. One is, do you think that is the fault of the customer base or the marketing department? And 2, can you name something that Fender and Gibson did in the, you know, after the heyday of the, after in the I don't know, in the 80s or 90s or whatever.
Sure.
That was a success and one that was a flop. So that's two questions with multiple parts.
So I am more of a Fender person. I know more about Fender. I think a model that Fender came out with that has.
Oh, wait. You have to answer the first question first. Do you think it's the fault of the customer base or marketing?
I think it's mostly customer based.
It's like so if
customer base. Marketing can only do so much. Sometimes I think they might abandon something too soon.
I wonder on that.
Take a really, really, really long time for people to sort of get used to the new idea of. And if you give it 2 years or 3 years ago, well, we didn't sell any of those.
You know,
the other thing is you're allowed to buy your way into the market, and you know, if this new quirky thing is more money or the same money as something tried and true, it's not going to probably do as well as if it was, you know, introductory price.
Well, and some guitars are just stinkers.
Yeah, some guitars are just stinkers, and some ideas are just stinkers. And
I think you're right, Chris. I think the customer base is more to blame for that than the marketing department. But I don't think the marketing department should get a pass either.
No, I don't think so either.
Okay, so can you think of something that was a success and something that was a flop?
So I think for Fender, the Meteora body shape and style.
Which one is that one?
That one's the the initial version of that guitar was kind of what if the Jetsons made a Telecaster.
Oh, okay.
And it was sort of Explorer, sort of Tele, but very futuristic, but mostly Telecaster. And they've stuck with that body style, and they've modded it and put a trim on it and humbuckers and this and that. And I think people have finally sort of accepted it as a model.
Okay.
And it's pretty neat.
So you would say the Meteora is a success
guitar
or
that he
a
built
flop?
here is a lot like a Meteora. I would say ultimately a success.
And
they're still doing them.
And now flop?
A flop, everything else they've ever made that wasn't a Stratocaster.
Well, just think of one thing, like the Katana.
Well, yeah, so that was a Japanese thing.
Okay.
And I think that was mostly Japanese. I don't think that was Fender USA. I'll say something like the Bass 5.
It's a 5-string bass.
5-string bass. I think the body met the neck at like the 12th fret.
Oh, yikes!
It's the dumbest thing you'll ever see.
Let's take some comments here, and then let's talk about what maybe some Gibson stinkers, and maybe we can come up with that. There's a lot more stinkers.
Gibson does more stinkers.
Bob Potter says BFG. I think that's I don't know if he's talking about Billy F. Gibbons or if he's talking about the Gibson BFG Les Paul, which I thought was kind of neat. Bob Potter also says single point of failure. Jay says institutional knowledge. That's what you're talking about, Chris. Is that what you're looking for?
I've heard that phrase, and you're not wrong, but that's not.
It wasn't what you were thinking.
Not the one, that I was thinking of.
Stinky Whizzle something. I remember watching a video with Paul where his son was with him. I remember that one too. They were they're on their deck in the backyard or something, drinking sodas. I don't know if his son has any interest in guitars, but it would be cool if he passed down to him, kind of like Martin did. Yeah, I mean, you would think that'd be a family business. Yeah,
that doesn't work out.
Zed says, I just wish we could get some of the designs from Fender MIJ. Well, you can, right? Why is that hard to get? Made in Japan Fenders. It's not tricky, right?
Sometimes.
Was it the Aerodyne stuff? That was all. Those were all.
The
or CIJ or whatever.
The American dollar is not always good.
What
be a problem.
What is special about those? And don't say, they're just like a lot better. Like, do they make something that they don't make?
I don't
here?
follow the Japanese stuff. I think they do make some models that you can't get here. That Fender USA and Fender Mexico and Squier don't make.
All right.
But I'm not super familiar with any of that.
Okay.
I don't honestly pay that much attention to what everybody else is making from year to year. I'll see a few things because I like a few things, but.
Lefty says the customer can only buy what you provide. It's not the customer's fault if a company falls on its butt. Yeah, don't miss the point. The point wasn't that the customer is to blame for successes and failures of whole companies, but I do believe that the customer plays a part in whether or not something that comes out is a success.
Yeah.
Or not. So you can't necessarily blame the customer for the fault, but I think you can they can be applauded and lauded for if something is a success.
Yeah,
right.
I think so. And the funny thing is so both Fender and Gibson do this. Back in the day, there was a Stratocaster. There were a couple of Les Pauls, as we've talked about before, but there was a Stratocaster. There was a Telecaster. There was a J-Bass. There was a on down the line. And
hi, Butch.
And then they started, sort of dividing that out. And at one point, there was the American standard Stratocaster.
Yeah.
There was the Mexican standard. There was the American professional Stratocaster. And it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And they've done a good job with, finding niches within their core models, their famous models. And anytime they come out with a new body shape, that's when people start having a conniption.
They don't
even if it's, let's just say that it was basically a Stratocaster from front to back, but it had a different body shape.
Oh yeah, that would yeah.
No, nobody would want
a disaster. It would
probably
sales
probably
Titanic.
Yeah. But now they're starting to do things where they do limited runs because there are people that are interested in some of that stuff, but not as a full-time model. So they have limited run paranormal series.
What's the pawn shop one?
Yeah, pawn shop series, whatever. Yeah, and I guess they do okay with those.
Okay.
And depending on what it is, some of them even sell really, really well and sell out before they even start making them. So.
I guess having this notion of a custom shop, everyone has a custom shop.
Well, yeah, whether it's custom shop or production stuff, but it's not something that you're going to be able to find in 3 years.
But doesn't the custom shop thing where they kind of test some of the market with
I think they
very limited run things that the custom shop deal, and if somebody buys them and they get a lot of
that's happened.
They can turn it into
they've done a custom shop thing, and that was pretty popular. So then they sort of dumb it down into a production line.
And I think Gibson is the same way. Gibson has had so many bad ones. I can't really think of something that I think that the SG was, when it was the Les Paul, like I'm like, yeah, really, that's the Les Paul, but I think the SG has certainly soldiered on and become a, very, and that was still 1961. So it's not like anything recent. Gibson's had a lot of things that weren't successful that were good. And they've had some things that were kind of turkeys that also weren't successful. The Firebird X comes to mind immediately. And I think what killed that was the electronics package.
The electronics and it was out of date before it even
I think that was
released.
the
I think that's the real problem with that guitar.
Yeah.
And probably, I don't know, probably the fact that it wouldn't do regular guitar stuff. It had to be hooked up to all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Because really, if you could also just plug it in and play it,
then at least it'd be a guitar.
Could have sold them at least.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have had to run them over with a bulldozer.
Yeah. I think that some of that stuff too, like the first guy through the wall is going to get bloody, and
those guys on Princess Leia's ship.
Yeah, that's right. And people are like, someone like Dave said something about robo tuners, and I get it that that's not what anyone wants, but I'm not 100% sure that the robo tuner is something that is in its final form yet, and I fear that like the customer base has ruined that. Everyone, no robo tuner. No, I don't want that.
I need to manually be able to put my guitar out of tune.
But the simple fact is that it's not a totally dumb idea. In fact, when you saw it first in 1986 or 7, because Jimmy Page had $100,000 Les Paul that had all this gizmo stuff in it to tune it. It wasn't tuned at the tuner. It was tuned like all this armature thing inside the body.
Okay.
And the strings were pulled through across the stop tail or something. I don't remember, but there was one of them, and he had it. The only guy who could afford to have it was him. Yeah. And I'm making this, or I'm making less of this than I'm sure it was. But the fact of the matter was, it was an automatically tuned guitar. Now, I think shrinking that down and making it something that just sort of goes on a standard Les Paul it didn't meet with success, but I don't think that makes it a bad idea.
No, I don't think
and maybe it didn't work. I don't know. I've never played it.
It might have been, I've never played them. It's actually a good idea. But maybe it was implemented, executed poorly.
You and I talk about this. You remember a time. I remember a time. I think a lot of you guys remember a time too, when nobody had a tuner. Now, I don't think that anyone said, well, you know what? If there was like a little tuner thing, we'd all have that. And no, I don't want that. I want this pitch pipe, but I think that relying on some new technology is not a bad thing. The problem is when it starts to make your one true and holy, everybody loves this guitar. It doesn't have robotic tuners. It doesn't have a MIDI interface or whatever it is. All that stuff's bad. I only want the stuff from 70 years ago. The problem is you might be leaving some neat stuff on the table.
Yeah.
Man, anyway, let's go back to the comment section. Oh, what was that one that Gibson had that kind of had like the double cutaway thing, the McCarty one that we found this drawing on Ted McCarty's desk behind a thing that was walled up, 70 years ago, and it was a tulip thing.
Didn't it look a lot like a Rickenbacker?
No, it looked at
or Telly or
it just had this kind of tulipy thing. Yeah,
it might have looked like a tulip.
Yeah. Speaking of PRS, they had a model called the Metal. It was just standard 24 with pinstripe paint job. Boy, do I know what you're talking about. I loved those. I loved them.
Kudos to PRS for sticking, basically to his guns for the longest time in making a guitar and slowly bringing out other stuff and not flooding the market with every pile of crap they could get their hands on and feeling like they needed to have new stuff every single year.
Well, it was decades before they even made anything that was like that same shape, but all the way hollow, or an acoustic guitar, and now they have that. I'm going to say Strat, and they have a Strat and a Telly. I wonder if Paul. Now this might be very telling of whether or not Paul is doing anything with the company anymore. He might be like, I don't want to make. Although I'm sure he loves Strat. I don't know. Here's where if I say Paul Reed Smith doesn't want to make a Strat, then the comment section. Oh yes, he does, and whatever. Mm-hmm. Loring has something I want to read here. He said the way Gibson launched the Robo Tuner was what was bad about it. I was at NAMM that year, and dealers were freaking out. You had to order it. Only signature models had the option of not having it.
It should have been a.
Here, Zed is talking about his Evertune thing. I still don't. I love Zed, and I don't understand the Evertune. I'm sorry, but yeah. Bob says auto tuner is just something else to break when you need it. Well, sure, but it's sort of like. And Bob, I get that. Remember that guy who was telling me that my little. Okay, perfect example. That little StewMac nut slot depth gauge. Mm-hmm. Now, Chris, you and I use that tool for lots and lots of things for setup.
I use it,
all the time.
All the time.
And if we had to not have that, I'm sure we would figure out the old school way to do it. We'd go back to whatever we used to do. I think those cards or whatever it was that we used to do.
During the zombie apocalypse,
yeah.
After all the 2032 batteries are gone,
yeah,
I'll figure it out.
Presumably mine with the dial will still work.
Correct.
Yeah. But I think that it's sort of like saying, well, man, the crank on your car is so much better than a battery because the battery can die. Well, and I know Bob's not saying that.
The starter can crap out on you.
Yeah.
And you have to change it in the front of the
having a tire that holds air somehow magically, and
yeah. Well, and really, I mean, it probably wasn't the right time for robo tuners.
Maybe not. Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. Well, and baby step into that. Mm-hmm. Maybe a tuner on the guitar,
or I like the idea of just selling robo tuners as I'm gonna air upgrade. Hey, you guys want robo tuners? Exactly. You can put them on your guitar and they bolt right on and check it out. You can do it.
And if you hate them, take them off.
Yeah, you can put your other things
back on with little to no scarring.
Dylan sent us a super chat and says a broken escalator is still stairs.
There you go. Yeah. What am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
I can't get up the broken escalator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or a really nice ramp, depending on how broken it is.
It might be really busted. Yeah. So, Chris, we've got a few more. Oh, go ahead.
I'm good.
So we've got a few more minutes. We want to talk about some of the upcoming workshops that are happening. We're going to do some reveals tomorrow. We'll probably show off the PRS stuff the PRS style guitars that we're going to be. Why did I say style?
Because for one, we're not making Paul Reed Smith guitars. Nobody's going to confuse these with real Paul Reed Smith guitars. But it is an apt descriptor of the guitar.
I think they look fantastic. Mm-hmm. The carve is really cool. Mm-hmm. Someone was like, those little dishes for the knobs are slightly different.
Yep. Okay. You're right.
And again, we're not going for the counterfeit.
We're not trying to fool anybody. Yeah. They don't have bird inlays. No. They won't have bird inlays. They aren't going to say PRS anywhere. Mm-hmm. They aren't even the PSR. We're not even faking it.
No, we're not even doing a phony baloney name.
It's a PRS style. It's a Strat style. It's a Telecaster style.
Bob says his Challenger stays in tune. Just saying. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. You hope that a guitar will eventually stay in tune, and really, you'd hope that the Robo tuners would hardly ever have to work after you first get it.
And maybe the Robo tuners weren't good. I don't know. I've never actually played a guitar with
I haven't either. I heard they were a hot setup for 12 strings.
That sounds like a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, why would you not want to tune your 12 strings?
I think the idea has a lot of merit. Okay, this song is in a different tuning, so I go beep beep boop, I don't even know. Can you go?
And it could have been. It could have been. Yeah, I think so. I think I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking about tuners. The interface of it could have just been really clunky and hard to use, just like the interface of a lot of slightly older acoustic guitars with a built-in tuner. I was playing one last night or a couple days ago, and it's got a tuner, and it's not handy to use at all. It's got handy. 2 color lights. It has let's just say a red light for the note that it thinks you're trying to tune to. And then it's got a green light when you actually hit it. But it's, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And a guitar is not tuned that way. So E down here, then A, then, and it's all, and I'm like, okay, is the green light the one I'm looking for? And I'm just like, clip A. Okay, here we go. And I think that's the thing too, is as technology marches on and interfaces get easier to use and more hands-on, more what's the word I'm looking for? Intuitive. That's the word I was looking for. Then some of that technology doesn't seem so foreign.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. If it almost seems like it reads your mind with, oh, you just push this button and everything happens. Okay, cool. But if you have to actually, work it and think about it and learn how to use it and read the instructions.
You gotta do it.
Yeah. Who wants that? What man wants to do that?
So who carries on the legacy of the guitar building? His kid, the people who work there, the people who buy the guitars.
I think it depends on. Yeah, I mean, there's always a super fan that is probably got a lot of history in that. People didn't know how Fender dated stuff for about forever, it seemed like, and Fender certainly didn't know. So somebody else was the one that followed up on that.
Do you think you get a bunch of bunk information now that maybe the people who did know are gone? Like, if you're not alive enough to defend your position that you had 50 years ago when you were making this guitar or whatever, like, do people go on the internet and slam you and go, "This is dumb. Robo tuners are dumb," or whatever?
Yeah, that could happen. Back in the old days, everything manufactured had a date code on it. Not even necessarily a serial number. Some did, some didn't. But it had a manufacturer and a date code on everything, and that was not for the end user. It was for the company that made it.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I've been putting, I hesitate to say serial numbers, but codes in the pickups and in the control cavities, so that you can at least
have some sort of number. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's like, well, I wonder who made this speaker. Well, the first 3 numbers on this thing will tell you who did it if you look it up in the book or look it up on the internet. And then the next 3 numbers or 4 numbers is when it was made.
My Grand's Force Brooks axe has a 2 initials of whoever forged it in Sweden, which is pretty neat. I think. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, not all of this stuff is a mystery. There's just the people that think they know don't always know.
I think you get a lot of folks who have an idea and it might be right or it might
write the history of Texas toast, whether it's truthful or not.
Well, that's what I'm driving at.
We should write it down.
I wonder.
Put it out there.
Is our legacy up to us? And I think in a lot of ways it is.
Yeah. I think it
is. And it's up to you guys too. I don't want to tell you guys I don't want to spill the beans yet, but Joy's working on something that is a lot like that right now. And it didn't start out as like a way to, catalog, the history of, and that's not it. But I think that it's going to be something that you can hold in your hands and, well, you guys will see it.
Yeah.
So Anyway,
we're gonna make those Gray Street guitars a real thing.
Maybe. Jay says sometimes it comes down to marketing. Beeswax was better than Betamax was better than VHS, but it died because marketing sucked. Budweiser took a hit because of bad marketing choice. I guess they did. Yeah. Okay.
So we should get Sony to back us
if you want. Yeah. Who had there was the micro cassette and the mini cassette, and I think one was Panasonic and one was somebody.
That was the same with Betamax and VHS. Yeah, I think Panasonic was backing
the mini or the micro
cassette. Betamax.
Okay.
I think Sony and a couple,
Okay. Okay.
It was who's backing which platform, because neither one of them came up with it.
Well, we did something today that we don't normally do. We stayed on topic. And we used up all of our time talking about the topic. And we didn't have any. We don't really have any time to talk more about the workshops coming up.
Do that tomorrow.
We want you guys to come out and attend.
And really, that sort of dovetails into the reveal that we're going to show anyway.
Okay, so we've got a reveal tomorrow. I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be, what everything's going to be, but we will be showing off some of the PRS things.
Yep.
We want to talk about the amp building workshops coming up with Swantronics. Eric from Swantronics and Henriksen Amps. We got a bunch of good stuff on the horizon, don't we?
Yeah, tons.
Like Rod's going to come out to the amp building one. Dave's coming out to the amp building one. What do you think? Like, where on the fence is Federico on the amp building?
I think he has to go home and see what his schedule is.
Okay.
And see if he can do it.
Okay.
I know he would like to do it, and if he can, he will. Yeah.
Mike says better guitars through marketing.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talking about Betamax or Beeswax. None of your Beeswax.
Yeah, Beta.
Laser disc. Wow. The idea that guitars that I built will outlive me by many, many years is cool to think about. Gives your name a little bit of permanence of whatever that's worth. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's your legacy, and people might want to know. We all too often we get so wrapped up with let's get the guitars out to the people because it takes a long time to make these things that there's not a lot of we know we've done like the certificate of authenticity and then we stopped doing it mostly because we got lazy or we ran out of things or whatever. I don't know why, we just stopped or we forgot or we shipped a bunch of guitars and oh man, we don't have any more of those things. And we try to include stuff in the case with the guitars.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's just a guitar.
Stuff, and sometimes that stuff just disappears. And so the first guy gets it and then that's that. It disappears. And that's the last time anybody sees it.
There are hundreds of those things lining bird cages. And,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
when you get a guitar, keep all the stuff with it.
Well, or
it comes in the case.
Or don't put all the stickers on your car that you're not going to have in 10
stickers.
years.
Or
a little hang
send us
tag.
An email and a hang tag. Yeah, send us an email and say, hey, I want more stickers so I can put some of them on the wall and some of them. Leave some of them in here, but. Yeah,
here's a self-addressed stamped envelope.
There you go.
Yeah.
Don't just send a thing and
send me stuff.
Yeah, send me free stickers.
Jay says the cert is now the reveal of it. Yeah, I mean, in a lot, so many of our guitars though don't have, reveal videos.
And I've seen people sell guitars on like Reverb and say, here's the video, here's a cool video that the guys did when they first finished it or something like that. So in some ways the videos are the certificate of authenticity.
That's right.
Yeah, here's two guys sitting
talking about your guitar,
talking about your new guitar. So
all right, gang. Well, thanks for all the super chats and thanks for hanging out with us for this hour. It was fun. And Chris, I hope you are doing good and get to ride bikes this weekend.
I'm hoping so too.
I want you guys to go and check out Dylan and his lovely wife, Leslie, over at Dylan Talks Tone and tell them that Matt and Chris sent you. And we'll see you tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel for a reveal of some kind.
Yep.
Probably something that we will never make another one of if we get strings.
That's actually true. Oh, that and there might be another one that's just like that.
Oh, really? I don't even know which one that is. Okay, we'll see you guys tomorrow for the reveal. Take care. Have a great night, everybody. What's the other one?
Not Doug Strat.